Jeremy wasn't quite sure how he had gotten stuck with this job. Did he really have nothing better to do? Isaiah eventually knelt down in the soil to help him, but he wouldn't say where he had been up until that point. "I'm just a little disappointed that we didn't realize it sooner," Jeremy sighed, yanking another carrot out of the earth. Several had sprouted amongst the potato plants in front of the church. "I hope nothing happens because of it. Then again, Red's already gone." Isaiah looked up with wide eyes. "You don't really believe that the carrot goddess took him, do you?" Jeremy shrugged. "I mean, maybe it was the potato lord." "What are you saying?" Jeremy interrogated. Isaiah fell silent again. At that moment, Garden and Dan came ambling up to the church. "Hey, kiddies," Garden greeted. "Everyone too busy to help you with the yard work?" "Are you volunteering?" Jeremy asked. "No, I'm on a little venture of my own. The potato lord came to me in a dream last night." He had Jeremy's attention. "Because we allowed for the potato crops to be sullied by carrots, he wants me to sacrifice one of my lambs, so Dan's going to help me build an altar." "Dan can't build for crap," Jeremy snickered. "He'll sit around while you build it, and then he'll accidentally break it somehow." "Well, excuse me," Dan sneered. "What happened to your shirt?" Isaiah queried. Dan looked down at where a strip of fabric had been ripped from his sleeve. "I don't know," he muttered thoughtfully. "I must have hooked it somewhere and ripped it without noticing." "I'll come and help you guys when we're done here," Jeremy offered. "Thanks, but we might be done by then," Garden chuckled. "I wouldn't count on it." "Why were you looking at me when you said that?" Dan squawked. Jeremy just laughed. Garden and Dan began building the stone altar near the farm so they wouldn't have to lead the lamb too far. "You can go help them," said Isaiah after a while. "I can do this on my own." Jeremy was a little apprehensive to let his little brother be in the holy garden by himself. "Are you sure?" he checked. Isaiah nodded. What was the worst that could happen? This was a place dedicated to the potato lord. Surely it was a safe place for his followers. "Okay," Jeremy huffed as he pulled himself up and brushed himself off. "Burn the carrots when you're done, and make sure you don't touch any of the potato crops." "Yes, sir," Isaiah saluted with a smile. Taking his word, Jeremy left to join the others. He found an almost complete altar. It was rather poorly made, and Dan seemed to be having troubles with the finishing touches. He kept placing the same two rocks. When he would set one down, the other appeared to leap from its perch. He would curse and move it back, but the first one then shifted out of place. "Need a little help?" Jeremy teased. Dan shot him a look like thunder and demonstrated the odd occurrence once more. "It's like someone doesn't want me to finish," he growled through gritted teeth, sounding a little bit like a conspiracy theorist. "She's here. The carrot goddess is stopping me from finishing this altar. Do you realize how crazy you sound?" "Cease and desist," hissed a voice in the wind, sending chills up the men's spines. "Maybe you're right," Jeremy peeped. Dan just scoffed in irritation and kept trying to connect the last pieces of the altar. "Where's Garden?" "He went to get the lamb." A piercing cry of a curse broke through the air. Jeremy and Dan jolted with shock and ran to Garden. They bolted across to the pastures where the sheep usually grazed, and found Garden standing at the fence, his hands gripping the wooden panel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He trembled with frustration and gritted his teeth. All of the sheep were on the ground, dead. "What happened to them?" Jeremy breathed. "I just found them like this," Garden murmured. Jeremy and Dan exchanged a melancholic glance. What could they do? "It's her," Dan noted. Jeremy nodded. Garden was suddenly taken by a horrible thought. He ran off to check on all the animals, but he found them in the same position. Horses, cows, chickens, and pigs had all been struck dead. The other two eventually found Garden back by the altar, praying with all his might. Jeremy's heart broke for him. Garden had to support his family, and, without the livestock, no longer had any way of doing that. In a single moment he had lost everything. Jeremy and Dan knelt down at his side and prayed with him. Meanwhile, Isaiah was still oblivious to his friend's situation and was quite proud of himself as he finally ripped the last carrot from the soil and tossed it into the bucket. He stood to his feet and admired the tidy veggie patch. He liked being able to help. It was in this moment of confidence that his spirit shattered. He took a half step back and felt something crunch beneath his boot. He froze where he stood. He could feel the leaves that had gone up his pant leg when he placed his foot down, and something had given him a slight scratch on the back of his calf. Already knowing what he would find, he dared to look down at the small potato plant below him. He swallowed the dry lump in his throat and slowly and carefully moved his foot. He looked around anxiously, but no one was in the area. No one had seen it. He quickly dropped to his knees and attempted to stand the plant up, but it was completely crumpled over itself. He whimpered curses to himself, understanding the severity of his situation. Who knows what could happen to him for doing this? In an attempt to hide his crime, he squished the plant even more and hid it underneath a stone. Once he was done, he breathed a deep breath before looking around again. There were no witnesses, and nothing seemed to be happening. Maybe he was safe. Every hair on his body stood at attention as he heard the carrot goddess whisper, "Run." For those of you who have decided that you hate the sound of my voice, I'm uploading this to Wattpad in text form, so click on the link in the description to check that out.